Welcome to the fourth episode on innovation. In our last session, we talked a bit about the unknown and what that means to innovation. In this session, we'll start digging into actual innovative processes and how to make innovation work. Let's start by setting up a little diagram here. Take it in full screen so we can see it better. So we have a bar here across the bottom, and we'll say that the left side of that bar is non-innovative space. I don't mean anything negative about non-innovative space. The reason we have food on our tables, we have cars in our driveways, we have houses, is because of non-innovative activities. It's okay that my house used the same process to be built as the neighbor's house. It's okay that my food grew in a field that was harvested the same way that fields all across the state of Kansas were harvested on. That's actually how we get the things that make sustain life. But non-innovative space doesn't lead to change, it doesn't lead to improvement. So thus the need for innovative space as well. So we're going to put innovative space on the far right of this continuum that goes from one side to the other. But, all great charts and graphs have at least two axes. And so the axes we're going to discuss here is going to be undisciplined versus disciplined. So we're talking about processes here. We would have right over here non-innovative disciplined processes and non-innovative undisciplined processes down here and so forth across the chart. So let's kind of put some feet on this thing, make it a little bit more concrete. So we're going to have here a non-innovative example. Let's say a $1 billion car plant gets built. Now, you don't just experiment on a $1 billion car plant. Yeah, let's throw a robot here. Let's do receiving side over here. No, shipping side over here. That doesn't going to work. You're going to make that broken down into all little details of all little parts and all little pieces and everything just defined in great detail. So how about an innovative example? Well, how about breaking into a $1 billion car market? How do you do that? What kind of car would you make? Would you market that car? What kind of people would that appeal to? Sure, you're going to make some plans, but those plans are going to have to change. You're going to have to explore this space. There's a number of companies out there that are trying to break into car markets. Some succeed, many of them fail. This is not a given. There's a great deal of unknown in breaking into a $1 billion market. Much more unknown over here than there is over on the non-innovative side. But let's talk a little bit about processes. What kinds of processes fit on this kind of a chart? Well, obviously, your traditional, Gantt chart work breakdown structures, waterfall software development. They're very disciplined, and they hit over here in the non-innovative space. Now, you could say, well, waterfall software development has developed some very innovative software. But the process itself, you define every step of what you want in that software up front. Then you go away and code it. Then you test it. Then you deploy it. And ideally, everything is great. You're done. You've walked down these steps. It's a very disciplined process, but it's one where all the pieces get defined up front and then get implemented. So it kind of fits. Again, we're kind of just loosey-goosey putting stuff on this graph and don't quibble on the details. It's the kind of the concept here that this is very disciplined, but it's certainly not an exploration process. It's not a let's see what we can figure out. It's a let's all come into the room, agree what we're going to make, and then go out and do it. And that's not a bad thing. Like I say, if you're going to build a $1 billion car plant, you better have a plan, and you better stick with that plan. The more unknown that exists in that plan, the more likely you are to get off the rails and things are going to go bad. But over here, it's a different story. If you try to stick to your initial plan without learning, you ain't going very far because your plan is going to be wrong because you don't have all the information you need. All right, so let's look at the process like agile software development. It certainly has discipline in it, has a lot of discipline in it. Not quite the discipline of some of these. So it's definitely more innovative, or undisciplined, if you will, as well. So you kind of have this kind of process. Scrum is similar in that regard. Lean manufacturing falls into that same kind of a category. Then you go to the more, anything goes kind of processes like Kanban, where you're getting quite undisciplined. You still have a discipline. Kanban definitely has discipline. Um, but you also have a lot more room to do exploration and figuring things out and just trying stuff. So you're kind of more and more innovative. So now what if we go like totally chaotic, random, unplanned, just whatever, whenever, hey, I see something, hey, let's just try it. Here's a really good example of that is how I clean my house. I go, oh man, the cats have put cat litter all over the floor. I need to sweep, the room. Oh wow, there's a bunch of dishes sitting in my sink, and I'm starting to smell something coming from them. I better clean my house. It's very chaotic, random, unplanned. I'm not going to say that it's super innovative. It's certainly not. It's kind of in the middle here, right? Well, this kind of gives us this concept that innovation falls in this kind of a process here, where the more innovative I want to get, the more random, unplanned I want to get, the more undisciplined I get, and the more disciplined I get, I move back here towards this kind of a you know non-innovative process. So it's kind of like, okay, well, if I want innovation, if I want new ideas, I have to put up with chaos and randomness and unplannedness, and it's not going to be very effective, but it lives over here. I'm going to argue that this is completely and absolutely false. There is, in fact, a discipline of innovation, and you need to get off of this kind of continuum thought. Erase that and look over here. Develop a discipline of innovation that's highly innovative and highly disciplined. Now, the disciplines of innovation, by the way, are completely across the chart from the disciplines of non-innovation. There is almost no combination. The disciplines over here are going to be almost completely opposites in a way, and different. It's completely different than what you have here. It's not even they're not even remotely similar. You might find some elements of agile. You definitely do over here, but it's agile turned on its head. It's completely different. It's motivated in a very different direction. So if there's a tendency, if you're running an innovative project, to start moving up in this direction in order to create discipline. And you really, if you're running an innovative project, you need to move towards these disciplines over here, which are quite different. And in future episodes, we'll discuss in detail what disciplines of innovation really mean, how they work. I'm going to throw out a couple of examples. One is what I call the 2-day rule. That is, do not work on anything longer than 2 days. If you've worked 2 days on something, stop. Perhaps I often wait a week or 2 weeks. And during that week or 2 weeks, I'm thinking about off and on what I was working on. I pull myself back away from it, which is very different than what you do on the discipline side over here. You just work down the project. But over here, you pull back, you evaluate where you are, you think about what you've learned over those last 2 days. And if you haven't learned anything those last 2 days, then you need to start getting really worried, because you need to figure out, am I on the right track? Because in the world of innovation, you're going through the unknown. If you go 2 weeks into the unknown, that's 2 weeks you wasted, because you're probably headed in the wrong direction. You need to go as short of a step as you can, and 2 days is a maximum. Ideally, go 2 hours into the unknown and then implement something new, try it out, see how it works. And take what you learned from that and make that the foundation of the next little step that you make, and then the next little step that you make. And some of you familiar with Agile can understand that some of those concepts are from here, but instead of 2 weeks, we're talking 2 days. And ideally, 2 days is a maximum. If you can figure out something that you can deploy in 15 minutes, that's even better. The shorter, the better. Because what you're wanting to do is venture into the unknown, take your flashlight into that unknown space and look around and see what's there and learn from that, and then take that knowledge to move on to the next thing. Otherwise, you're going to go full bore into one of those hills or mountains of problems, and you'll be fighting problems that you could have avoided if you had paused and looked around. So, thus the 2-day rule: stop, look around, make sure that you're actually headed in a direction that, where opportunity lies, and you're not headed straight towards a problem. A very, very different way of thinking than over here, but very disciplined, because it is hard when you're in the middle of something to go, I'm going to stop and I'm going to get some context and I'm going to think about what I'm doing. It's an incredibly difficult thing to do. And I break the 2-day rule all the time. And very often I pay for it if I break that rule. So here's another example of a discipline for innovation. And I just kind of loosely call it ROI/creative to creating. So if you are developing something new innovatively, there needs to be a pipeline of new things that get converted from newness to being actually useful in the real world. Just running through ideas one after another willy-nilly is not innovation. You need to take ideas and turn them into something that can be practical and be exploited. In other words, you want to take things that are way over here on the right side of this graph here and move them over here to the left side of the graph. So if you're not doing that on a regular and fast basis, again, this 2-day rule, you want to have things, innovative concepts come up and move over here into the disciplined area of getting things done as fast as you possibly can. Of course, depending on what kind of innovation you're doing, fast varies. But, in the software world, I like to deploy literally, if I can deploy within 15 minutes, all the better. You want to get something created and deployed and in use as fast as possible. From creative to creating, you want creative ideas to result in creating value as quickly as you can. And if you've stopped creating value, or the value that you're creating has been decreasing and decreasing and decreasing over time, then you need to move on and do innovation somewhere else. Innovation in one space does not last forever. There are not unlimited opportunities in one space. Grab the opportunities, exploit that space, and then move on to new unknown space. There's no reason to waste your time gathering the how would I say, the little bits and pieces that are left over when there's a whole nother opportunity next door. A great example, there was a old abandoned orchard that we were given permission to pick some apples from. And this orchard had tree after tree after tree. Well, I tell you, I did not go climbing high in the trees to grab all the apples off of one tree. That's a complete waste of time. I grabbed a good collection of apples off one tree, moved to the next, moved to the next. And then we started going, hey, there's different trees, have different kinds of apples. A good mix of apples would be helpful for our applesauce. It'll taste better. So we started balancing our apples by grabbing some from one tree and some from the next and some from the next. So our creative activity resulted immediately in creating, where we were creating more value by jumping from tree to tree to tree. In innovative space, that's what you do. You move from thing to thing to thing. Again, that's a very different way of thinking than over here in the discipline world, where in the discipline world, you tend to work one little thing next to one little thing next to one little thing. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of an introduction here to what, let me bring this graph and make it smaller again, what the discipline of innovation is all about. It's a different way of looking at the world. It's a way of looking at the world that results in a steady accumulation of the value and benefit of innovation. And I don't think innovation can be done any other way effectively. If you're simply doing innovation for exploration, that's fun, it's exciting, but it really needs to also create value. And that's where the discipline of innovation comes in. The discipline of innovation allows innovation to be focused in such a way that value comes out of that innovation. Thanks for joining. Look forward to you next time.